AJ, the children of the defendant's current wife were just 16 and 7, respectively, in September 2019 when they went missing. 9 months later, in June 2020, both of their remains were found buried in the defendant's backyard. The children's mother, Lori Vallow Daybell, was sentenced to life in prison almost a year ago now for her role in her children's deaths, among other charges. Chad and Lori allegedly believed that dark spirits were taking over their loved ones, and those people had to die in order for their souls to be saved. But prosecutors argued that money, power, and sex were the real motivators for murder. Before the jury reached their sentencing recommendation, they heard some pretty powerful victim impact statements from those close to the victim. So let's hear some of those right now.
Knew that JJ didn't get his 8th birthday song, and it broke me. It was just so wrong. He didn't get to have that joy and feeling of love and celebration of his birthday. It is now grief that we are confronted with yearly. A stark and blaring reminder that we are never going to be able to celebrate that joy with him again. 4 of our grandchildren, near JJ's age, often tell us how they love and miss him. It is heartbreaking to have a conversation with an 11 or 12-year-old. How do you make them feel okay about it or safe? So yes, this is our life now, trying to comfort our other grandchildren while they try to comfort us.
I lost the ability to sit. I lost the ability to sit with my little sister and talk and share our lives. So in short, I lost everything I've ever known. My 3 kids will never know the kindness of Tylee's heart. Tylee will never be able to travel like she always wanted to, or have a family of her own.
I would not be a good sister if I did not defend Tammy as well. She was made out by some in this court as if she was lazy and fat and dying from an illness. She was in better health than I am right now. Do I look like I am dying? It is not a crime to be a middle-aged woman trying to be healthy and still play a video game or eat fast food occasionally. The lies, deception, and murder have ripped our family apart. We do not feel peace. I am not a dark person or a zombie, and for me and my family to be portrayed this way is unacceptable. I am tired of being vilified, so there is a reason to not listen to me. I stand for truth, and I don't lie. So know as I say this now, my sister should not be dead right now. She should be here alive and smiling.
Truly
family and friends.
heartbreaking to listen to all of that. But we're going to bring in our guests, and we're going to chat about that and how Chad Daybell's case has unfolded. Trial attorney and federal litigator Alexis Rosenberg is still with us. And joining the panel now, we have former prosecutor Dan Shore. Alexis, let me start with you. This is really powerful testimony coming from the grandmother, the brother, and the sister of Tammy. What do you think, how do you think that did affect the decision to recommend the death penalty?
Well, victim statements have a huge impact on whether we're going to, order the death penalty. Watching that, what was really striking to me was still the lack of emotion by Chad Daybell. I mean, even if you're going to take the position that you still did not commit these murders, there should still be some an emotional reaction when you're hearing about how hurt and how painful this situation is that they no longer have these loved ones on the planet with them.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's very difficult to hear all of that and to have it not impact you. And I'm sure it did make a difference as far as that jury's concerned. Dan, what's your thought about John Pryor? He wasn't a death penalty qualified attorney. Do you think that could have made a difference in this case, or maybe that could even be a ground for appeal?
It's possible, but the facts here are so egregious that it's hard to imagine this not going to a death penalty decision. Killing multiple people, two of them children. If there's going to be a death penalty in a state, this is the type of case that it's based on. There's no mitigating circumstances. There's no reason to feel sympathy for the defendant in a way that would make up for the aggravating circumstances of these killings. So maybe someone who is more experienced with death penalty cases could have been more helpful to him. But on these facts, even the best attorney would have an extremely hard time getting him to avoid the death penalty based on the whole history here with the victims.
That's an excellent point. Alexis, you know, one of the things in Idaho is there aren't that many people who are on death row and who actually do get killed while they're serving on death row because, you know, they've had issues in the past with executing people with the drugs for lethal injection. How long do you think it could take if, in fact, there are appeals and all of the above could take place?
Well, it could take 15 to 20 years, but you bring up a very good point, Terry. I think there's 8 people in Idaho that are currently, well, now 9 with Chad Daybell that are currently on death row. I think since 1976, they have executed, I believe, 4. And they recently tried to execute one of the inmates, and there was a problem with them actually getting the drug into his vein. And as you mentioned, there has been some issues going on with even obtaining the lethal drugs themselves. A lot of pharmaceutical companies, they don't want to be involved in that. So they've had a hard time, different states, getting even a hold of these lethal drugs.
Right. And Dan, I know you watched this trial. What's your opinion of how the judge presided over this, Judge Boyce, in terms of, you know, his rulings and in terms of how he dealt with each of the parties?
I think overall he did a good job at this case. I mean, it is a lot of complicated parts of a case like this. Whenever you have a death penalty case, especially, the judge is under extra scrutiny because you know there's going to be scrutinizing appeals, many appeals. It's going to go on for years. So it's not just about making the right decisions, but also preserving the record in a way that can withstand appeal. So it seems like that was largely done here, and we'll see what happens with the appeals. But as was just mentioned, this is probably going to go on for a decade or more of appeals, and Idaho doesn't have a great track record of successful executions. They've recently even been talking about using a firing squad, which, whether or not you're for or against the death penalty, seems like a really barbaric way to conduct an execution in 2024. But they're having difficulty successfully executing anybody in that state, even though they have the death penalty.
Exactly. It's really an odd situation, if you ask me. Thank you both for weighing in. I appreciate that. Stick with us for more on Law and Crime and the latest on the Doomsday Cult saga as more updates come in. In the meantime, we have to take a quick break, but stick around as we bring you much more courtroom action right after this.